There comes a time in life when noise disappears. Not the noise outside, but the noise inside. The opinions, the expectations, the pressure to perform, the need to explain yourself. And when that noise fades, something uncomfortable remains. Truth. Not the truth you show to people, not the truth you rehearse in public, but the quiet truth you feel when you are alone with your thoughts. This story begins there, in a moment of stillness that felt heavier than chaos. The room was dim, lit only by a weak light that softened the edges of everything inside it. Outside, the city continued living, cars moving, lights blinking, people rushing somewhere important. Inside, a man sat alone, staring at nothing in particular. He wasn't broken, but he wasn't fulfilled either. He had learned how to survive. He had learned how to be responsible. He had learned how to meet expectations. What he had never learned was how to feel alive. From the outside, his life looked acceptable, stable, predictable, safe. The kind of life people nod at approvingly, the kind of life that doesn't cause concern. But safety can become a cage if you stay too long. He had told himself the same comforting lies for years. This is fine. At least I'm not failing. It could be worse. And those words worked for a while, until one night they didn't. That night there was no breakdown, no tears, no dramatic moment, just a simple realization that arrived without warning. Time is moving and I am not. That thought cut deeper than anger ever could. Because anger gives you energy, but realization gives you responsibility. He thought about the younger version of himself, the one who had ideas, curiosity, hunger, the one who believed effort mattered, the one who imagined a future that felt meaningful. Somewhere along the way, that version had gone quiet, not because life was cruel, but because comfort was convincing. Comfort whispers softly. It tells you there's no rush, that tomorrow is always available, that effort can wait. And before you realize it, years pass. The hardest part wasn't that he hadn't achieved enough. The hardest part was knowing he hadn't tried honestly. He had protected himself from failure so well that he had also protected himself from growth. That night, sitting in that room, he asked a question he had avoided for years. If nothing changes, will this life be enough for me? There was no debate. The answer was clear. No. That answer didn't destroy him, it woke him up. For the first time, he stopped waiting for motivation. He understood something critical. Motivation is unreliable. Clarity is not. Clarity doesn't scream. It doesn't hype you up. It doesn't promise easy outcomes. Clarity simply tells the truth. And the truth was this: no one was coming to save him. No perfect timing, no sudden opportunity, no external permission. If his life was going to change, it would change because he decided to move. Not dramatically, not all at once, but deliberately. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual, not because he felt inspired, because he felt done. Done with waiting, done with excuses, done with living on pause. His body resisted, his mind argued, comfort tried to pull him back. But this time, he didn't negotiate. That single act, getting up despite resistance, was small, but it mattered. Because discipline is not about intensity, it's about agreement with yourself. He began restructuring his days, not perfectly, not aggressively, but intentionally. He started paying attention to how he spent his time, what drained him, what distracted him, what quietly moved him forward. He realized how much energy he had wasted consuming instead of creating, scrolling instead of learning, complaining instead of building. planning instead of executing. Progress didn't arrive fast. Some days felt pointless, some days felt heavy, some days he questioned everything. But one thing changed. He stopped quitting on himself, and that changed everything. Growth doesn't happen when you feel confident. It happens when you return again and again after doubt. Weeks passed, then months, and slowly, without announcement, something shifted. Not externally, internally. He began trusting himself again, not because he had achieved something impressive, but because he had proven consistency. Consistency builds identity. You don't become confident by telling yourself affirmations. You become confident by keeping promises to yourself. Small promises, daily promises. I will show up. I will try again. I will not disappear when it gets uncomfortable. As his internal alignment strengthened, his external life responded, not magically, logically. He became more focused, more reliable, more disciplined. People noticed, not because he spoke louder, but because he became steadier. Opportunities didn't fall into his lap. They emerged because he was finally prepared, because preparation creates visibility. When you stop chasing validation and start building value, the world responds differently. But with growth came new challenges. Success didn't eliminate pressure, it transformed it. Expectations increased, responsibility expanded, and ego quietly entered the room. The desire to be seen, to be admired, to be recognized. At first, it felt rewarding, but ego always asks for more, and eventually it drains purpose. He noticed it in his exhaustion, not physical exhaustion, but a deeper kind, the kind that comes when your actions drift away from your values. One evening, years after that first night, he sat alone again. Same silence, different man. This time, the question wasn't about worth, it was about meaning. What am I contributing? That question refined everything. He stopped chasing speed, stopped comparing paths, stopped measuring himself against others. He focused on alignment. Did his work reflect integrity? Did his effort serve something beyond comfort? Did his discipline create stability, not just success? He began setting boundaries, clear ones, not out of anger, out of clarity. No to distractions that diluted focus. No to commitments that drained purpose. No to pleasing everyone. With every boundary, energy returned. He discovered a truth few talk about. Peace is a byproduct of self-respect. When you respect your time, your effort, and your direction, life becomes quieter, not easier, clearer. He started guiding others, not as an expert, but as someone who remembered confusion. He spoke honestly, that growth is slow, that doubt is normal, that clarity comes after action, not before. Some listened, some didn't. He learned to release attachment to outcomes, because transformation cannot be forced, only embodied. Years passed. He was no longer chasing a version of success defined by noise. He had built something stronger: ownership. Ownership of mistakes, ownership of choices, ownership of direction. And that is what true strength looks like. Not domination, not perfection, responsibility. Because the moment you take responsibility for your life, excuses lose power. You stop blaming timing. You stop waiting for approval. You stop outsourcing your future. You begin building. Slowly, quietly, deliberately. You build habits that support who you want to become. You build skills that compound over time. You build a life that makes sense even in silence. And one day, someone will look at you and ask, How did you change? You won't have a dramatic answer. You'll remember mornings when no one watched, evenings when quitting felt easier, moments when progress was invisible, and you'll know you didn't change overnight. You stayed. If you're listening to this right now, understand this. You are not late. You are not weak. You are not behind. You are standing at a moment of choice, and your future will not be decided by one massive action, but by the small decisions you repeat when no one is watching. Stand when it's uncomfortable, work when it's boring, learn when it's difficult, rest when it's necessary, and keep going, especially when results are silent. Because meaning is not discovered, it is constructed.